Good morning, everyone. Thomas Fleming here. Well, tomorrow, I'm doing this on Friday. Tomorrow I'm going to the Renaissance Festival. I'm just going to dress up lightly, nothing major. I won't be taking any of my swords. I got a whole bunch of swords that I've picked up over the years, but I won't be taking those. I wish I had enough to do a priest. If I had like a frock or something, I could do that. One of my good friends there has an act. It's called Friar Finnegan, and he sings songs and comedy songs, tells some jokes, and he dresses in a frock. And he goes, "This is the easiest costume to wear. It's just a one piece over the top." You know, he's wearing undergarments, of course, underneath, but he's still got just nice casual frock to wear. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about it. I'll probably include some footage. This is probably going to come out on Sunday morning, and I don't know if I'll have time to edit it or not. If I do, I'll try to include some footage at the end. Otherwise, I'll just do it as a separate video. The Renaissance is essentially the 1600s time frame. That's a pretty... We got out of the Dark Ages. We're trying to rebound, but the problem is the church is interfering. The church is putting on too many rules and not giving people freedom. It's the basic reason that we have the United States. People were leaving over there to come here. Well, obviously, 1492 is a lot earlier, but that's when it was discovered. They didn't know it was here until that time. Then when word gets back, it's like, oh my God, we can get away from this crazy church over here, the Church of England, and their rules which were more restricting. Laws were not put in place to control us, but to show us where we're sinning, essentially. And we've got to have laws, but too many. We need to focus on one thing. We're given one job, the Great Commission: spread the gospel. They end up with eating laws, just like the Jews did, which were too overbearing, all kinds of other laws. The Catholic Church still does some of this today, and it's wrong. You don't have to go through anybody else to get to Jesus. You go straight to the head of the class. If you've got to go to a priest to get to Jesus, that's wrong. Now, they can be there to be helpful, but your confession doesn't go to a priest, it goes to Jesus, because as soon as you take it to Jesus, if you're repentant and you confess to Jesus, it's gone. You don't have to tell anybody else about it. He simplified religion. True Christianity should be very, very simple. But the church, who wanted control, it's all about control, and then power. And power corrupts. And so the leaders became corrupt. Even today, there's still pockets of that. I firmly believe the way Billy Graham did, that most Catholics will get to heaven. They just have a little extra baggage to carry along the way. And that's the thing. Baptizing a child, a baby, makes the parents feel good, but it's not true baptism, because baptism has to be a willful consent, a willful display of your belief. Having to go to church. You don't have to go to church to be saved. You have to do one thing: repent and ask Jesus to come into your life as your Savior. That's it. Everything else is just added on. We are told to gather together and discuss Jesus. And we bring people to Christ through love, not through fear. Christ didn't come to offer fear. He came to offer love. And that's how we're to do this. So when we look at the times, the 1600s, just before that, they had Martin Luther came out in I guess it was 1517, as he first introduced his 95 things that we can discuss. And I can talk about those in a later video. The bottom line is he was challenging the church. You've got these things that you say that we're supposed to do, and I say that we don't have to do that. So the 1500s is where the Protestants basically got started. And now you end up with the fight going on, and people have been killed. Wars have been fought over this. In Ireland, in my lifetime, there were people killed because of their Protestant / whatever else belief. So it's ignorance, really, is really what it is. Ignorance of what the purpose and the meaning of what Jesus was supposed to be doing for us. How many different religions do we have in the world? I don't know. I've heard 500, I've heard 5,000. It doesn't matter. Depends on how you want to break them down. Even amongst Christians, how many different denominations do we have? If you want to unite a world religion, unite it around Christianity. Now the Pope is saying we need to unite all religions, bring the Hindus in and bring the Muslims in and bring everybody in. We're all just going to be one big happy family and sing Kumbaya. And that's all you have to do in life, nothing else. Oh, Jesus? Well, yeah, I mean, he was a good guy. You can follow him if you want. He will be brought up as an important character just in time for the Antichrist to show up, to pretend to be the real Jesus. Get him on What's My Line and see if he can stand up against the real Jesus. He wouldn't make it. That's an old TV show if you're not old enough to know that. A lot of ignorance. I talked about it in one of my last videos. Good intentions. And to put it in a southern take, good intentions don't feed the bulldog. One, do you act on the good intentions, or do you overact on the good intentions? Jesus, again, is our example. What would Jesus do? Now, he does make it into some forms of comedy. Jeff Dunham is a comedian that does puppetry and ventriloquism. And he has this old man, Walter. And Walter's an old, crotchety old man, probably more realistic than he should be. He goes, my wife and I were arguing, and I go, well, what would Jesus do? Well, I tried to turn her into a fish. Okay. We can laugh at stuff like that, but unfortunately, people take something like that and will actually build a church on it. I mean, how many times did Jesus heal people? He healed them by saying something. So now if you don't speak in tongues and say things, you're not a good Christian church. He laid hands on people and healed them. So now you got to have a church where you got to lay hands on everybody all the time. Otherwise, you're not a good Christian church. I want to know where the church is of the Holy Spittoon, because he spat in the mud and made mud and put it in the blind man's eyes and he could see. So where's the church where everybody's spitting on each other? Do you see how absurd this is? And Jesus is doing all these individual things to show that he's multifaceted. You don't build a little niche over here where that's all they do. He did everything, all lovingly. And when people were upset, it upset him. When Lazarus died, his friend, and they came to him, and he knew he couldn't go heal him right away. He had to be dead for a little while so he could resurrect him. They cried, he cried. He's compassionate. That's the way we deliver the message, compassionately. And you're not going to get a receptive audience every place you go. Again, going back to our stage acts, every stage act learns you've got to be able to adjust your delivery. Different lines of jokes for different audiences. If you start off with a line and it doesn't sell, go to the next one. And good comedians and stage people don't have to go the vulgar way. Some have made a living being vulgar up there. No, you don't have to. Red Skelton, the world's clown, he didn't swear up there. And he was funny. Now, you can cross the line a little bit, just keep it so far above it. If the kid's sitting in the audience, they won't understand it. And you're okay. But if you go into the other territory, then you're no better off than these people wanting to do drag queens at the schools. You've got to keep the little ears separate from adult talk. And even adults need to watch what they talk about amongst adults. Keep in mind that Jesus is with us. The Spirit is with us everywhere we go if we're a Christian. What would Jesus do? Always remember that. Okay, let's see. Getting back to the 1600s. They were making advances in science. They were still doing some bloodletting, but they were making advances. But the 1600s was the ultimate in ignorance. The Salem witch trials, that was 1692, I think. Burning people because they thought they were witches. Again, taking a physical world into a spiritual world. It doesn't work. If these were really true witches, one, they wouldn't be advertising it like the other people. These were just herbalists is really most of what they were doing. There may have been some psychic type stuff in there, but that's just ignorance. That's stupid. They weren't witches. And you physically burn a witch. If there's a demon involved in that, that's not going to deal with it. And all the demon's going to do is pop out and go someplace else. You deal with spiritual issues spiritually, not physically. That's why I keep warning everybody, no matter how far they push you and poke you and prod you to get your anger up, turn that over to God immediately. Don't get angry. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to provoke you to do something. Because as soon as you react, boom, we have a new law. It's against the law to react. Don't give them ammunition. They're trying to take ours away. Don't give them any. No matter what it is, take it to Jesus. You're happy about something, take it to Jesus and thank Him. You're unhappy about something, take it to Jesus and ask for His help. It's a simple solution. If you see somebody doing something wrong, figure out the politest way to deal with it. The politest way. Don't go crazy. Don't go standing on a corner saying, so-and-so's doing this and so-and-so's doing that. That's not what you're supposed to do. The Bible tells us we're to go to them one-on-one and reason with them politely. If that doesn't work, take somebody else with you to reason with them politely. The The church doesn't get involved, or the church leaders don't get involved until you've exhausted everything else. And then it's up to the church whether or not that person should be allowed to stay in the church, if it's bad enough. But there's a process, and it's go to God, go to the individual. Go to God, take somebody back with you. It's a simple process. It's not something that you're going to go up there and go and get angry with them. That's not how you do it. If we're dealing with people, love the person, hate the act. Love the person, hate the act. If you love the person, you're not going to, well, I'm going to say most people would not physically attack them. Children need discipline to a degree, and they need some, punishment for bad behavior, but that can go too far. But I would say the government is not the entity to tell us in most cases. Unfortunately, we have child abuse, and the government has to get involved. If we get things out of hand, the government has to step in. It should never get to that point. It should never get to that point. Always take things to God and to Jesus first. Okay, 1600s. What else went on? England was kind of a dichotomy during that time. Queen Elizabeth I, early on, tried to exile Protestants. And when she realized that she was going to exile her whole country because everybody was going Protestant, nobody wanted the Church of England. She kind of reversed that, getting close to the year 1600. Not completely forgiving them, but tolerating them. But the Church of England was still way too demanding. And the Mayflower, when did it sail? 1620 is when the Mayflower came across. September, I think. It's fall. They were bringing people over to these newly established United States. They weren't a country yet. That's 1776. We haven't got there. And England's going to try to stop them, of course. But they're over here, and they're trying to live their life. But the people over here, there were good people and there were bad people. The indigenous people over here were nice and accepted them for the most part. The people that came over here and were acting out of fear and annoying and pissing off the indigenous people, the Indians, as they were called, because they thought they reached India. They're the ones that didn't survive very well. Those that landed and went up to the northern areas of Virginia and New York, Maine, and any of those upper states that we now know about, they got cold, harsh winters and very short summers to grow in. The indigenous people knew how to do that, how to live there, and they didn't survive. The Americans that were there didn't survive because they didn't cooperate with them. We have our Thanksgiving meal coming out of this time frame, where some of the people were smart and worked with them and they shared, but it's not all good. We've learned a lot in this country, and it's a shame that we're throwing it all away right now. Our government was established for the people. The government is supposed to be our servant. No, we're their servants now. And these are elite moguls who don't care about human life because they're not Christians. Life is just fleeting. I'm just going to eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow I will die. I know we'd like to try to hold it together. And you need to try to hold your little area together. But you're not going to stop the whole process. It's written down, but God's already told us about it. It's going to happen. You can't stop it. You can slow it down. And that's what we're supposed to do. We're restraining. We're holding them back a little bit until we're out of here. And that's all you can do. And don't get frustrated. Don't get mad. Don't get angry. If you can, we all have a tendency to do that. Give it to Jesus immediately. God, I just can't stand the way that person treats me. Help me. And then get still and wait. It's okay to show frustration. It's okay to show anger to God briefly, not at God, to God, through Jesus. He understands, and he's frustrated too. Jesus overturned the money tables. Now, if you can be as righteous as Jesus, you can overturn money tables. I don't think anybody down here can do that, so I wouldn't take that and copy it. But he went inside and then taught about God. All right. Those are the basic notes I've got. There's all kinds of other things I could cover during that time frame. I could cover the scientific discoveries. We've learned a lot. We learned the world isn't flat. I know, people made a name for themselves by claiming the world's flat. And they got organizations all around the world. They just got their 15 minutes of fame, and that's all that it was worth. Other people say we didn't go to the moon. Again, they get their 15 minutes of fame, and then they get laughed out. Some of these religions that we have out there are just as stupid. And there are people that are in these other religions, and they're doing very well. Why? As long as they're not in God's religion, Satan will probably help them. Unless God says to knock it off. You have to pray daily. And at the end of the day, if you're exhausted from dealing with all the crazy people, just hand them to God. Clear your mind of all your problems at the end of the day by giving everything over to Jesus. He said he would do that. People say, God doesn't have the time to deal with our little petty issues. That's Satan talking. Don't listen. And Satan talked through Peter. So just because somebody mouths something from Satan doesn't mean they're working for Satan or that they're not a Christian. Jesus told Peter, get behind me, Satan, when he was going to prevent him from going to the cross. We can all say stupid things. Want to know how big my mouth is? Measure my foot. All right. I hope you've had a blessed day today. Or will have a blessed day, depending on when you're watching this. I've got 2 times of viewing. I get a morning group and I get an evening group. So whichever time it is, I hope it's a great day for you. And don't let this get you down. There's no reason for it. It's good. We're in the time frame that if we don't die of a natural cause, we're not going to die at all because we're going to be raptured. We're in that group. We're seeing the Bible unfold. Now, to some, it's taking longer. We don't have any speed readers in God's plan. He's reading it very slow. And I'm grateful for that because I don't read very fast. It's also like the joke that I know you can't read very fast, so I'm writing this down very slow. Okay. I think that's all I had in my notes. I wrote down more than I knew I needed. Our country was founded for religious freedom, despite what these crazies are lying about. And they're going to continue to lie. Who's the father of lies? He's going to get the key to the city here in a little bit, but we'll be out of here. Don't worry. Like the song, don't worry, be happy. Till we meet in the clouds. God bless.